It goes without saying that a mother should never have to bury her own child, which is what makes it even more frustrating when you realise that no one understands a milligram of what you're feeling. My friend Jean doesn't know me right now. She's been chaperoning me for the past few weeks, following me round, trying to get me to go and see one of them, I don't know, a therapist or something. You've got to go through the natural grieving process, she said. You can't swallow up all the sorrow, it'll make you bitter. If you lose your mind, you lose your life. She thinks I've just got to snap out of this state of shock she reckons I'm in. But anyone who's ever lost a loved one will know it's a shock for life. And not a single day will go by in your lifetime when that person won't cross your mind. And it's not sorrow you've got to swallow every day either. It's guilt. No matter how it happened, or whether or not you could have stopped it from happening, you'll always feel responsible. Well, it's a mother's job, isn't it? Every single cell in your body's connected to your children. And on that horrible day, I just knew that something bad was going to happen. Should have listened to Brenda, I suppose. She told me there was a dark cloud over my head and a storm was about to break. Your aura is about to explode with darkness, she said. I mean, that was just in the chat room on the Barmy Bingo website. I haven't actually seen Brenda for, I don't know, about 8 months now. But she is always right, though. I mean, last year she told me I was going to be visited by a golden goose. Now, what that meant, I didn't have a clue. But, sure enough, when I got back from shopping, don't get me wrong, there wasn't a goose on the doorstep, but there was a flyer on the doormat advertising the Barmy Bingo website. So I signed up, and the first game was free, and then there was a 50p per game special offer for Barmy virgins. And on the third game, I won the golden egg triple bonus. And that was £150. I don't know how Brenda manages it, but somehow she always seems to get things right. It was Jean that recommended it.
How are you, Janice? Everything all right?
Oh yeah, fine. Thanks a lot. Anyway, 2 years ago, Brenda told Jean that her place of work would be changing and it would be of great fortune to her. Now, at the time, Jean was working for Bargain Buys and she didn't have any intention of moving on or changing her job or anything. But within a fortnight of Brenda telling her that, a stack of tinned tomatoes fell on her and she got quite a serious knock to the head. Anyway, the bosses wouldn't pay her compo, so she went to one of them claims solicitors and she ended up getting £2,000. And then we all laughed then when they used her on their telly advert. It was only on the Home Buyer Plus channel, but what made it really funny was they tried to make her look all glam. And, well, glam she isn't. It's probably all mumbo-jumbo, this. He was never a bad lad, or Gibril, you know. I mean, he wasn't like all the others, you know, no respect for their elders and all that. Oh, there was a few visits to the police station of late, but they were only minor things. Oh, the worst one was last year, when some security guard in town manhandled him for supposedly stealing some razors and a can of shaving foam. And then he had the cheek to do Gibril with assault, said to the officer at the time who was interviewing him. What would you do if someone dragged you by the collar and almost choked you to death? I mean, it was obviously self-defence. Not my lad. Not my son. I mean, the officer didn't like that. They've got it in for the kids nowadays. I mean, I remember when I was young, my dad used to invite the local bobby in for a Christmas mince pie and a cuppa, enhanced with a bit of gunpowder juice to warm him up. But the police are more like soldiers these days, with the bulletproof vests and the cans of pepper spray. Anyway, Gibril ended up getting community service, changing public bins for the council. I mean, what young man with an ounce of pride wants to spend his summer holidays as a bin man? Oh, I said to him, you know, it's good for you to do an honest day's work, son. But he said to me, Mum, it's not work if you're not getting paid for it. It's slavery. I suppose he had a point. Anyway, it was me who ended up getting fined for it, wasn't it? £260 and 50 pence. Now, where'd they get the 50 pence from, I don't know. I think they do it to confuse you. You know, so that if you have paid the £260, they can add cash penalties on top because you forgot to pay them 50 bleeding pence. I just gave them the 50 pence and stole them on the big money. Don't think they'll be seeing that now. Not the way I'm feeling. Anyway, then he was on a curfew for fighting. But that's the nanny state for you, that. We're not allowed to punish our own children. I mean, I could have just grounded him myself. But the government give them more freedom than they can handle, and then they take it away when they realise that they can't handle it. And in between all that, you've got us, the parents, unable to do bugger all about it. They have these alcohol-free discos, you know. Apparently the kids call them free alcohol nights. It's always been the same, hasn't it? There's always some joker who slips something with a bit of kick into the punch bowl. My lad ends up fighting with a gang of lads over nothing. Oh, they were all trucked up to the eyeballs. But it was Gibril who ended up getting arrested because he was the only one who wouldn't run from the police. And of course, he wouldn't give them any names, so they came down hard on him. They have all these codes nowadays, the kids, don't they? They don't want to be labelled as grasses or anything. And there's always gangs of lads knocking for them. You don't know if they're his mates or not, the way they look at you when you open the door. It was easier when his sisters were at home. They're both married now. Tara lives in Chester with her husband. He sells new cars and she's a manageress of a fancy cafe. They've got a 2-year-old little boy. And Elaine finished her media degree last year in Leeds. She got quite a cushy job herself, editing for an advertising firm. I mean, they've all been down to see me, of course, you know. They had to go back to work. And they'll be down early tomorrow morning. I was lucky with the girls. Yeah. They'll be fine. They'll be all right. But you see, they had the dad around when they were growing up. He died when Gibril was 9. That was tough to deal with. Sudden death syndrome. His heart just packed in for no apparent reason. I always worried, you see, that the same thing might happen to the kids. But, well, that's the way my heart feels now. I only know it still exists when I get a panic attack. I've lost both the men in my life now. But he wasn't really a man, was he? He was my baby boy. And he always will be. The house feels empty now. I'm an empty woman in an empty house. I haven't told anyone that's how I'm feeling like. Because I don't want people fussing over me. See, they always want to make you feel better. And they might as well save their energy for a more worthy cause. I'm not sure if I'm of any use to anyone anymore.
Prescription for Janice Rowlands.
That'll be me happy pills.